Hey everybody, it's Bryant. I'm not going to be able to attend my team meeting tonight, so I kind of just wanted to touch base, not only with my team, but also with the professor. So I'm creating this video as my initial understandings, lesson 4, and then also if my team would like to, they can look at this and see what subjects I've been studying for the week. Let me share my screen with you guys. I actually just recorded this video and realized that I was sharing the wrong screen the whole time, so this is round 2. All right. Okay, so the first thing that I've been working on was the application controller. And so I went through and I did a tutorial to try to create some classes and understand what the application controller is and why it's important. As you can see, I have a new Java package which I've created, which has 4 classes: calculator model, calculator view, calculator controller, and model view controller. I'm going to explain each one of those, and then I'll just tell you why the controller is so important, and and then we'll run it, and you can see kind of what it looks like. The calculator model, the only thing that really needs to be in that is the logic for the calculator. And because this was a tutorial, it was extremely simple. This calculator can only do addition. And so all we have in here is we're saying take the first number with the user inputs plus the second number and then return the value of that. That's all that needs to be contained in there. If we wanted to continue on with this project and make the calculator even a little bit more complex and do, obviously, let's see, subtraction, multiplication, division, those would be contained in this model view, just model as well. The view is really how your program or how your app, how each screen is going to look. Because this is a really simple Java program, there's only one view that the user is going to be seeing, and so this is the only thing that we really had to create. The tutorial had me import some existing libraries that were already there, and so it actually went through and created kind of the frame and the layout and how things are going to look, which is, you have a text field here that allows them to put in the first number. You have a label, and I'll show you when I run it. That'll make more sense as to how these actually end up looking. Let's see here. The only thing I really messed with too much in here was the size, because initially the size was really big and it took up your whole screen, which is funny because it doesn't need to be that big. So we a little bit, and then I did change the buttons, not necessarily the buttons, but the labels around a little bit to make it easier to read. There wasn't an equal button before, so it was literally just put in your first number plus your second number, and then there was a sum button. And I don't know, for some reason for me, logically, I like to see that equal button, so I went in and I added that in. So it had to be put into here, and then also to here, and then that made it actually show up on the program. All right, on to the big one, the calculator controller. So the reason that this is so critical is we don't need to have the logic for, in this example, the calculator model also contained within the controller. There is a listener, a couple different spots here. There is a listener waiting for the user to hit the sum button, and when that happens, it will institute the logic that is contained within the model class. That is huge because as programs get more complex, there are going to be multiple different views, and instead of having the logic contained in both places, we can actually just have the logic be where it needs to be and where it logically should be, contained within its class, its appropriate class, and then have listeners that are waiting to perform those calculations and to show the appropriate views based on what we have told the controller to do. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm still trying to understand it myself as well. The only other thing I'll really mention in here is just that, and this is what the tutorial had me do. try to do it correctly the first time. So try to take their first number and their second number and add them together, and then catch any exceptions. So in this example, an exception is a number format. So if they don't enter in one number or something like that, they will get a message that I changed. Originally, it just said incorrect. I changed it to no, 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 silly. I thought that was a little bit more humorous. So let's run this. I'll shut my mouth for a second here. Let's actually see how this works. Let me make sure you guys are seeing it this time. Okay, good. I did the whole last video and you weren't able to see this at the end. So this is how it looks. Let me jump back over to the view a little bit. Let me get that back now. So the set the size, that's where I changed it to make this a little smaller because it was enormous. And then before, it did not have this equal label, and so that's why I went in and changed that there. So let's play around with this. So 1 + 1, and then there's a listener waiting for me to hit this sum button, and when I do, it is going to the model and using the logic that's contained in there to get this number 2. Let's do it wrong now and just leave one number out, which will cause it to throw the error, which says no, 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 silly. That's really all there is to it. It's kind of a simple design. And the big thing now is going to be my group and I actually taking this and implementing it into our own app, which I don't think will be too difficult to do. It's kind of an essential thing to learn and to use, because I know in our app in particular, there's going to be 4 or 5 different views that a user is going to see. So when they click on one button, it's going to take them to a different screen and to a different view. And we want the controller to be set up appropriately, so when they do click on those different things, we don't have to have the logic contained in both, but the controller will be smart enough to know where to go and what to do. So we'll see how that goes this week. We need to get our UML diagram and a few things like that kind of lined out and then start coding. And that's really what it's going to come down to. The other thing I wanted to show, and I haven't been playing with this too long, but I started to do some research on JSON and kind of get an idea of what it is and how it works and things like that. So I had a couple different things that I could present this week, because I kind of feel like the application controller is pretty much done as far as the understanding of that and creating an example. And really all we need to do now with that is put it into our own program. Whereas with the JSON stuff, I had no idea what it even was, and so I had to start looking it up. From what I've been able to understand, it's a readable, minimal format for structuring data, and it transmits it between a server and a web application, and it's just an alternative to XML. So we already have something that does it, and it's been around a while. It's not like JSON's new or anything like that, but XML does the same thing essentially. It just does it in a different format. And you can kind of see that here. So if we wanted to define an employee object with an array of 3 employee records, that's what that would look like. The same thing to produce the same result in XML is here. Not necessarily that much more complex, just harder to read. And the big thing for me here, let's see, I think I wrote it down here for you. Maybe not. I wrote it down in my notebook here. JSON can use strings, which doesn't seem like that huge of a deal, but this is actually a really good example. If you look here, we're saying, look, here's the employees. So they're essentially trying to create an employee object. Here's employee number 1. There's their information, end employee. Employee number 2, information, end employee. And it's just repetitive, and it doesn't necessarily need to be like that. And that's one of the reasons I believe that they probably created it this way with JSON. You can say, look, we've got employees, create a new string, here they are. So instead of saying every single time, this is an employee, this is an employee, it avoids that repetition and makes that easier to read and easier to understand, which is huge. Why not make it easier if we can? As I went and got a little bit further into it, it actually had me create an object from the string and then see output from that. So when you actually run it in a web browser, what it's going to look like. So same thing as what we had up there. Exact same people, same array of employees. this is the big thing right here. This is the kicker, because this takes this information and this text and makes it plain text. So it could be read by any programming language, just like XML, because the syntax for JSON it's a JavaScript syntax. So sometimes people would maybe look at that and say, oh, geez, that doesn't look nearly as plain as this. So a computer could just go through this really easily and pull out the information. So by using this this object parse, it's parsing that information and essentially turning it into this kind of a look and feel, so the computer can know what to do with it, and so it can store the information into the appropriate objects. And then this line here, so this is what's going to be displayed. I ran this a few times, but if I were to run this, what do you guys think it would display? I always forget this. I've been doing this for a while, and I always forget this. I assumed that it was going to display John Doe, because it's going to display the first employee object, the first name, and then the last name of the first employee object as well. Of course it didn't. It displays Anna Smith, because we need to remember that this whole John Doe, in this case, holds a 0 spot. And so if we wanted to have that displayed, we'd actually have to go in here and put zeros. And then if we were to change it to 2, of course it shows Peter Jones as the output instead of Anna Smith. That's about as far as I've got really with the JSON stuff. Hopefully by next week I'll be able to show a little bit more on that and kind of how it works. But the biggest thing I've seen so far with it is that it's a lot easier to understand, it's easier to read, easier to write, and it doesn't require, let's see here, it doesn't require a separate parser. I mean, they have them and you can use them, but you can actually just use a JavaScript function and it does all the same thing. And that JavaScript function that I'm mentioning to you, it's that one right there. So we'll have more on that next week. Let me get back to myself here. So it's been an interesting week to try to kind of go through some tutorials and figure some stuff out, because I'm finding that a lot of this stuff, if I type it into Google and try to research it that way, I find a little bit of information, but there's not a ton. And so actually going through some of these tutorials and having to code in the things and see how they run has helped me a lot. And really all we need to do now is just start working on my groups app and start to implement these things that we've been learning into that, which honestly I feel pretty good about, and I think it'll go pretty well. The plan for this next week is that my group and I were going to try to kind of nail down a UML diagram, try to kind of get an idea of what the app is going to look and feel like, which I haven't told them this yet, but I'm going to take it upon myself to try to do most of the view stuff and kind of get, because they chose my app idea, so try to get an idea of what it's actually going to look like, how it's laid out, things like that, and hopefully get that drawn up so we can start to code that in. And then, yeah, just start to do most of the front end stuff and try to get that done hopefully within the next couple of weeks, so that we can get some of our back end stuff started, getting it to talk to a database and pull information from a database and things like that. So all in all, pretty exciting. I'm not as concerned as I was initially about the class. It was kind of overwhelming at first to kind of take the learning that we had to do into our own hands, and there's a lot of personal responsibility in that, because it'd be really easy to just not do anything. But it's been really good that way, actually, having us kind of learn on our own and then teach each other. I've really actually enjoyed that, and we'll see what happens next week. So thanks for listening to this. If you have any questions, let me know through email or through the Google Plus community. For the professor's sake, if you want any of this information, let me know. I think showing it's probably sufficient, but if you want actually links to any of it, I can give it to you. I don't have the calculator thing posted on GitHub because it's pretty accessible if you were to just search for it anyways. And then obviously this JSON stuff, I just type this in. So if you want that file, I can send that to you as well. So let me know. And at our group meeting tonight, if we have any questions or you guys need anything from me, that's fine. I'll be at work, so I won't be able to personally be in the Hangout with you guys, but I could probably be in a chat or something. I'll probably just be sitting there at work. So if I need to, I'll try to jump into that chat so I can chat with you guys. I just won't be able to do like a video call because I'll be at work. So yeah, thanks a lot, guys. I know I've been dragging on for a while now, so thanks a lot for listening, and I'll talk to you guys later.